Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today it's a bit of everything. It's a weekly wrap-up video. So firstly, I just want to say a big thanks for watching the channel. It's grown far more than I expected it to. I'm up to 400 odd subscribers now, which is frankly I find quite surprising. But anyway, hopefully that means there are people who like watching me ramble on about books, which is what I'm going to do now. So I've got 4 books to talk about today. The first one is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, which I did not read this week. So I started reading it and I got about, I can't remember, 150, 200 pages through it. And I just found it really heavy going. And I made a slightly light-hearted short review of it where I said it was just full of old people talking to each other, which is kind of true. But I know that a lot of people really love this book, and a lot of people whose opinions I really respect love this book as well. So I think I will go back to it at some point. But yeah, it just wasn't the right time for me to read it for whatever reason. I've got all 3 of the books in the trilogy, so I probably ought to read them. So I will give it another go at some point. I enjoyed parts of it, but I just found I couldn't. It wasn't gripping me enough for me to pay attention enough to it to enjoy it, if that makes sense. So I kept on getting confused about what was going on, which stops you being immersed in a book, doesn't it? So yeah, I'll definitely try it another time, but this wasn't the week for it. So after that, I went into something completely different. Survivalist Book 2, The Nightmare Begins by Jerry Ahern, which was great fun. So completely different. Wolf Hall, quite serious historical fiction, very well respected, award-winning. The Nightmare Begins, cheesy pulp crap, but very entertaining. I really enjoyed it. So in this book, so the nuclear war, happens in the first book. So in this one, John Rourke, who is the survivalist hero, is trying to get across America to find his family. So you do get some bits with his family who are kind of in the wilderness somewhere in this survivalist place he's made for them. His wife and kids trying to survive there, and him trying to get across the country to them. Rather implausibly, so he's ex-CIA, John Rourke, and rather implausibly, he bumps into a Russian woman who's been sent to invade America. And it happens that they've met before in the past when he was in the CIA. So, the chances of that, I suspect, are quite slim, but hey, it's an entertaining read anyway, and involves him rescuing the president and all sorts of good stuff. So yeah, that was very entertaining, and I am very much looking forward to reading the next book in the series. After that, appropriately enough, as I have the Eye of Sauron behind me there, I read The Fellowship of the Ring, the first of the Lord of the Rings books. Which I have to say, a bit like Wolf Hall, did threaten to scupper my TBR for the month. So I'm kind of behind where I should be, partly because I spent some time reading 200 pages of this, which went very slowly, but also because when I finished this one, I was very tempted just to dive straight into the next book and read all 3 in one go. But I've decided there were some other books I definitely wanted to read this month. So I've decided to park the next 2, but I suspect I'll read both of them in January because it's such a fantastic tale, and I really can't believe it's taken me this long to get to it. I think I did try it when I was a teenager and didn't get into it. I've read The Hobbit a couple of times, but yeah, it's just wonderful. To say such great world building is such an obvious thing to say about it, but I suppose what really spoke to me about it was it very much feels like a love letter to the British countryside. So I love that aspect of it. It's extremely exciting. It's very engagingly and charmingly written. So yeah, an absolute winner for me. 5 stars. Really, really loved it. And yeah, definitely looking forward to reading the next 2 in the series. So yeah, so that again, quite different from the preceding book. And the last book I read this week, which I've just finished, is again quite different from all the others. So From Those Wonderful Folks Who Gave You Pearl Harbor by Jerry Della Femina. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right or not. So this was the inspiration, as you can see from the cover, for the TV series Mad Men. So written in 1970 and Femina was a big advertising executive, so it's his kind of memoirs of life in the business. You know, there's definitely some crazy stuff going on there. You know, mad parties and things like that. But it's I suppose I have slightly mixed feelings about it in that it's very entertaining at times. It's definitely informative. You know, it definitely feels like he was there, and it's really engagingly written. I mean, I read the whole thing in the morning basically. But equally, he comes across as a bit of a dick. So there's lots of homophobia in here, and he just comes across as a bit arrogant, and that in a way took away from the book a bit for me, because you know, a lot of it is anecdotes about amusing and interesting stuff that happened, but a lot of it also is his opinion on things. And I think when you're reading something where the writer really wants you to respect their opinion and they come across as a bit of a dick, I think you don't respect their opinion. So whilst he's, you know, clearly clearly very experienced in the advertising business and knows his stuff, I'm not sure I believe everything he wrote, or I'm not sure I hold his opinion or share his opinion on everything he wrote, because there were definitely a few bits in there that I thought were a bit off, and he comes across as being, you know, like he talks about smoking, and how, you know, there should be no regulation of smoking advertising or any other sort of advertising. And it's quite interesting the examples he gives in that section, but I definitely didn't buy his argument. So yeah, definitely a fun and interesting book. I read this for my work book club, so very glad I read it. But yeah, it wasn't faultless, shall we say. There's something else I wanted to say about this, and I've completely forgotten what it was now. And the other thing I wanted to say about it, after my slight digression about fonts yesterday, is on the fonts on all of these books. Like, so on these two books, I think the font they use on the cover is just terribly boring. So in my pulp video yesterday, I was talking about how, you know, pulp novels had great fonts on the cover. You know, this kind of sans serif crap is just so dull. And the Lord of the Rings, you know, it looks like they've literally just used a standard Microsoft font for that one. The Survivalist, clearly, you know, fantastic font. Love that. And at least they made a bit of an effort with Wolf Hall, although it's not amazing. But yeah, that's just such a boring choice of font for the cover, and completely doesn't capture the kind of swinging 60s style of the book. And that's reminded me of the other thing I was going to say. So the other thing I was going to say is, when you get to the end of the book, there's like a little wrap-up chapter, and at that point you find out that when he wrote this book in 1970, he was only like 34 or 36 or something like that, and that kind of made me forgive him a bit for his arrogance, because certainly to me, probably not to a lot of you, but certainly to me, 34 feels very young. So, you know, I'm significantly older than that. So yeah, I guess I can see why he would be quite cocky and self-opinionated as a very successful 34-year-old. So yeah, mixed opinions on that one. So I think my favourite book of the week, definitely Lord of the Rings, followed by The Nightmare Begins, followed by this one, with Wolf Hall currently dead last, but who knows, when I try it again, maybe I'll like it a bit more. And next up for me will be the fourth of the Gore books, Nomads of Gore by John Gorman, which I'm literally just about to start. So yeah, looking forward to reading this and seeing what happens to Tal Cabot next. You know, we're coming towards, what is it, it's the 18th today, 19th today. So I've got 11 days left in the month. I am behind where I should be in my TBR. I think I've got 4 kind of shortish books to read, but then also Swan Song by Robert R. McCammon, which is like 1,000 pages. So it'll be interesting to see if I get through everything or not. I'm not convinced I will, but yeah, we shall see. And yeah, I'm up to book, so this will be book 21 of my 100 book challenge. So I'm a fifth of the way there. So yeah, continuing to see how that goes. But I'm really, really enjoying reading books I already had, albeit these 3 were all ones that I bought in the last 6 months probably. Lord of the Rings I've had for a while. I got this at a car boot sale a couple of years ago. And Wolf Hall I'd had for a while as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into stuff I've had a bit longer as well, maybe in the new year. Anyway, that was my weekly wrap up. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've read any of these books, do shout and let me know. But yeah, hope you're all keeping safe and well, and I will speak to you again soon. Cheerio.